Hey everyone, What If Fan here, bringing you another exciting part of What If copy system in Naruto. You can find the fanfic title and the original author's name on my Patreon page. Make sure to check it out and show them some love. If you enjoy the video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring that notification bell so you never miss an upload. Also check out my Patreon channel for early releases of all the series, where you can find all the series released one day ahead of YouTube. Alright, let's jump into it. Chapter 271, The Akatsuki vs. Kirigakura. Pain stood before Kirigakura, contemplating his strategy. He would prefer to keep the Akatsuki's existence under wraps for now. A powerful organization, if it drew too much attention, could become a target for the other hidden villages. Although the villages weren't exactly allies, they would unite against a common threat. Just like in the original story, where they joined forces against Obito and the White Zetsu army during the Fourth Shinobi World War. However, after some thought, Pain realized the Akatsuki couldn't stay hidden any longer. Assassinating a Kage was a high-profile act. There was no way to keep it quiet. We attack directly, Pain said. Subtlety was out the window. Pain summoned the other 5 paths. The 6 paths of Pain were assembled. Orochimaru's eyes widened. 6 Rinnegan? Had he seen correctly? Was the Rinnegan he craved so desperately suddenly commonplace? Since Orochimaru joined Akatsuki, he had only seen Deva Path, so he was so shocked when he saw the other 5 pairs of Rinnegan now. Shin? Orochimaru turned to Shin, hoping for an explanation. Although younger, Shin seemed to possess a wealth of knowledge. Orochimaru didn't believe the Rinnegan was suddenly common. There had to be a reason for this. Ask Pain. Though I doubt he'll tell you. Shin glanced at Orochimaru and said. Not getting an answer from Shin, Orochimaru wisely decided against questioning Pain. The animal path infiltrated Kirigakura first, and then used the summoning technique to summon all the other Pains inside. The leaders inside. Let's go. Orochimaru, show me what you're capable of, Sasori said coldly. You'll see. Orochimaru gave a chilling smile. They despised each other. Orochimaru would love to turn Sasori into a research subject. Kakuzu, without a word, entered Kirigakura. He wasn't afraid of a major village. He was someone who had fought against the first Hokage after all. Kakuzu wasn't easily intimidated. If things got dangerous, he could always escape. I'll be waiting inside. Don't disappoint me. Shin waved at Orochimaru and Sasori with a smile, and then disappeared instantly. At this time, Shin had already entered Kirigakura. Time to try Kirigakura's famous seafood ramen. He appeared in front of a ramen shop. Meitarumi had raved about it. He wanted to try it. He wasn't in a hurry to watch the Akatsuki's attack. A bowl of ramen wouldn't take long. A bowl of seafood ramen. And make it quick, Shin told the owner. He wanted his ramen before Pain and the others caused too much chaos. The owner quickly prepared a steaming bowl of seafood ramen. Just the aroma made Shin's mouth water. After a single bite, he understood Meitarumi's enthusiasm. It was delicious. Boom! Shin had only taken 2 bites when an explosion rocked the village. Pain and the others had begun their assault. The sound seemed to be coming from the Mizukage Tower. Shin, grabbing his bowl of ramen, vanished. In his haste, he forgot to pay. Shin arrived at the Mizukage Tower, or rather, where the Mizukage Tower used to be. It was now a pile of rubble, thanks to the Deva Path's almighty push. The animal path's summons were rampaging through the village. The entire Kirigakura was in chaos. Yagura, wielding his strange hooked staff, confronted the 6 paths of Pain. Who are you? Yagura looked at the 6 strangely shaped Pains in front of him with shock and anger, and questioned them angrily. We are your death. The Deva Path lunged, thrusting a black receiver rod at Yagura. Yagura dodged, instinctively sensing the danger, then swung his staff. Almighty push. The repulsive force sent Yagura flying. Bam! He crashed to the ground, rolling before coming to a stop. He wiped the blood from his mouth, staring at the Deva path warily. If not for the Three Tails chakra cloak, he would have been severely injured. His battle instincts were sharp. What was that? Some sort of Kekii Genkai? Yagura didn't recognize the Rinnegan. Few in the world knew what it looked like. The last person to wield the Rinnegan was the Sage of Six Paths, and who in this era had seen him? Only those who'd studied ancient texts would recognize the dojutsu. Yagura wasn't one of them. Orochimaru, Sasori, and Kakuzu arrived. Orochimaru, seeing the Deva path easily suppressing Yagura, felt a flicker of greed, then quickly suppressed it. Hold back the other Kiri ninja, Pain ordered. He could level the entire village with a super almighty push, but that would consume Nagato's life force. Besides, annihilating Kirigakure wasn't his objective. He just needed to kill Yagura. Sasori released his puppets. This kind of large-scale battle suited him perfectly. Orochimaru summoned a swarm of snakes, even more numerous than Sasori's puppets. Kakuzu wasn't idle either, he unleashed his Earth Grudge Fear. Chapter 272, Yagura's Demise. Shin watched the battle unfold while enjoying his ramen. The Akatsuki, though not yet at its full strength, was already a formidable force. Orochimaru, Sasori, and Kakuzu were all Kage-level powerhouses. 3 Kage-level powerhouses were enough to cause a big disturbance in Kirigakure and retreat unscathed. Kirigakure is really weak. Shin observed the battle. Yagura seemed to be the only Kage-level shinobi left in the village. The 7 ninja swordsmen of the mist were only elite Jonin level. Although they did have some strength, they couldn't threaten Orochimaru, Sasori, or Kakuzu. And Yagura was being overwhelmed by pain. If not for the Three Tails chakra, he'd already be dead. Three Tails, I need your strength. Yagura roared, transforming into the Three Tails. Few Jinchuriki could achieve full-tailed beast mode. In this state, Yagura's power far surpassed that of the Three Tails alone. Yagura retained his consciousness. Controlling the Three Tails' power was far more effective than letting the beast control itself. A Jinchuriki in perfect sync with their tailed beast was far stronger than the tailed beast alone. Your strength is commendable, but facing a god is foolish, Pain said, looking at the transformed Yagura. I am the Mizukage. Protecting this village is my duty. Yagura's voice echoed from within the Three Tails, which then opened its maw and began charging a tailed beast bomb. Every tailed beast, even the one tail with its limited chakra, could use the tailed beast bomb. The Deva path didn't flinch as the tailed beast bomb hurtled towards him. The Preta path stepped forward. Blocking technique absorption seal. The tailed beast bomb was absorbed, and Shin raised an eyebrow, impressed. Nagato's 6 paths of pain were quite capable, absorbing even a tailed beast bomb. Of course, Shin wasn't very impressed. It was decent, but nothing special. However, Yagura was very shocked. He was running out of options. Almighty push. The Deva path unleashed a powerful repulsive force, far stronger than before, sending the Three Tails crashing into the earth. The Preta path rushed forward, using its chakra absorption ability to drain the Three Tails' energy. Even a tailed beast's vast chakra couldn't withstand the Preta path's relentless absorption. The Three Tails quickly retreated into Yagura's body. Pain looked at the weakened Yagura, ready to deliver the final blow, then hesitated. He had heard that if a Jinchuriki was killed, the tailed beast would also die with them. If he killed Yagura, would the Three Tails also die with him? The plan required the tailed beasts, and the Three Tails must not die. It doesn't matter if Yagura dies. The tailed beast can be revived, though it takes time. Shin appeared in front of Pain and said calmly. A tailed beast was essentially a mass of chakra. As long as its chakra wasn't completely annihilated, it would eventually reform. Whether it retained its memories was another matter. Hearing Shin's words, Pain still didn't make a move, because Pain didn't trust Shin. What if Shin was lying? Their plan to collect the tailed beasts and revive the Ten Tails couldn't be jeopardized. Pain decided to extract the Three Tails from Yagura, which would also kill him. Extracting a tailed beast was a death sentence for the Jinchuriki. The Devapath personally took action and extracted the Three Tails from Yagura's body. The Three Tails, weakened by the Predapath's chakra absorption, was severely diminished in size. The Three Tails fled in a hurry. Pain didn't pursue it. Though the Akatsuki's goal was to gather the tailed beasts, it wasn't time yet. He didn't want to openly antagonize the 5 great villages. The Akatsuki wasn't ready for that kind of conflict. Looking at Yagura's lifeless body, Pain, to be safe, thrust a black receiver rod into his heart. Not even letting the corpse rest in peace, huh? Shin commented, then realized he was in no position to judge. Just like Kagayasara, who was killed before, not only was he killed, but his body was also taken back by Shin for research. The mission's complete. Let's go. Pain looked at the increasingly large number of Kiri shinobi gathering in the distance, and obviously didn't plan to continue to entangle with them. They hadn't come to annihilate Kirigakure. Killing the Mizukage was one thing, destroying the entire village was another matter. Pain, with the other paths, quickly left. Seeing Pain withdraw, Orochimaru, Sasori, and Kakuzu naturally wouldn't be like fools and continue to engage with Kirigakure's shinobi here. Soon, all the Akatsuki members withdrew, including Shin. Yagura's death didn't cause much grief in Kirigakure. He hadn't been a popular leader. His brutality, which had turned Kirigakure into the Bloody Mist village, had made him many enemies. Though Yagura's actions had been a result of Obito's control, no one knew that. Yagura had taken the blame, and now, dead, he couldn't even defend himself. Shin returned to the land of whirlpools, and the death of this Mizukage didn't cause a sensation in the shinobi world. The land of water was an overseas island country, so it was relatively closed off. It was also difficult for news to spread. Besides, Kirigakure didn't want this news to spread either. After all, a Kage assassinated in their own village was a humiliating disgrace. Chapter 273, let's see who punishes the other. I'm back. Where is everyone? Shin returned home to find the house empty. Kushina, Tsunade, Makoto, Konan, and Mei Terumi were nowhere to be found. Did they go train? Have they all become so diligent? That's actually good news. Shin stepped out of the house and headed towards their usual training spot. Sure enough, they were all there. Konan and Mei Terumi were training diligently, while Kushina, Makoto, and Tsunade watched from the sidelines. It wasn't that Kushina, Makoto, and Tsunade weren't working hard, they simply felt they had hit a ceiling in their strength and couldn't improve much further. They had reached the peak of Super Kage level. The next step was 6 paths level, but achieving that was incredibly difficult. Looking back at the Naruto world, how many actually reached 6 paths level through their own power? Almost everyone relied on some external boost or cheat. Kagaya Otsutsuki had the God Tree Fruit. Shin didn't know the full details about the Sage of 6 Paths and his brother, but their lineage already placed them far above others. Then there was 6 Paths Madara, 6 Paths Obito, Naruto, and Sasuke all relied on external power. Madara and Obito became the 10 Tails Jinchuriki. Naruto and Sasuke received power directly from Hagoromo Otsutsuki. Even Shin himself had reached 6 Paths level with the help of his system. Without it, Kage level would likely have been his limit, maybe not even Super Kage. So, Shin was also a cheater. This world ran on cheats. Want to get stronger without one? Keep dreaming. In the later stages of Naruto, characters without cheats became practically irrelevant. Seems I got a bit sidetracked. You're back? Kushina turned her head, looking at Shin who stood behind them. You sensed me? You're improving, Shin said, ruffling Kushina's vibrant red hair. Stop it. You're messing up my hair. Kushina glared at Shin, slightly annoyed. You three are just watching Konan and Mei train? Not working hard yourselves? Shin sat down between Kushina and Makoto, casually putting an arm around each of them. It's not that we don't want it, it feels like we can't get any stronger, Makoto said, shaking her head. We've maxed out our ninjutsu and Sharingan abilities. Our chakra feels like it's hit its limit. There's not much else we can do to improve. You could train your taijutsu, Shin suggested, looking at Makoto. No way. I don't want to become a muscle-bound behemoth. Would you still like me then? Makoto shuddered slightly at the mental image. Shin looked at Makoto, speechless. Did training taijutsu automatically mean bulging muscles? He hadn't exactly turned into a hulking brute himself. My monstrous strength is good enough. Tsunade chimed in at that moment. Indeed, being able to shatter a building with one punch was sufficient. Besides, their strengths didn't lie solely in taijutsu. While Tsunade in the original story relied heavily on medical ninjutsu and her monstrous strength, her most powerful technique now was wood release. Shin looked at Kushina, Makoto, and Tsunade. He could help them reach 6 paths level, just as Hagoromo had granted power to Naruto and Sasuke. But he was reluctant. Forcing their power like that might limit their future potential, making it harder for them to grow stronger on their own. That's why Shin hadn't granted them 6 paths power directly. He believed that with their potential and his guidance, they might reach 6 paths level eventually. If they truly couldn't, then he'd reconsider directly gifting them the power. What are you spacing out about? Kushina noticed Shin lost in thought and playfully poked his cheek. After poking him twice, she found the sensation quite pleasant and couldn't resist pinching it. What are you doing? Shin asked, exasperated, grabbing both of Kushina's cheeks. MMPHH, let go. Kushina mumbled incoherently, struggling and even trying to bite him, though his grip made it impossible. Don't you get tired of this? Shin asked, looking at the flailing Kushina. You're always bullying me. Makoto, help me. Shin's getting too cocky, let's punish him. Kushina yelled towards Makoto. Don't drag me into this. I'm not as bold as you, Kushina. Good luck. Makoto watched with amusement. This was Kushina's own doing, Makoto wasn't getting involved. Getting involved meant getting bullied by Shin too. Even together, she and Kushina couldn't beat him. Makoto knew her limits and stayed out of it. Punish me? Let's see who punishes the other. Shin picked Kushina up, and his figure vanished instantly, leaving Makoto and Tsunade sitting there. What do you think will happen to Kushina? Tsunade asked Makoto. Nothing too serious, I imagine. She'll probably just be too weak to move for a few days, Makoto replied with a smile. Tsunade looked at Makoto, speechless. That wasn't serious? Although, with Kushina's constitution, it wouldn't take her days to recover, but she wouldn't bounce back instantly either. The memory of that particular weakness made Tsunade's own face flush slightly. Tsunade-ne, you're blushing. Feeling like joining them? If you go now, Kushina might even be grateful, Makoto teased. Makoto, you've gotten awfully bold, teasing me like that. Tsunade glared playfully at Makoto, moving to grab her, but Makoto, anticipating the move, used the body flicker technique to quickly put distance between them. Just then, Konan and Mei Terumi finished their training and walked over. Where are Shin Nii and Kushina Nichin? I saw Shin Nii come back earlier, Konan asked curiously. She'd noticed Shin's arrival despite being focused on her training. They went off to do good deeds. Maybe you should go check on them, Konan, Tsunade said with a subtle, mischievous smile. Konan, seeing that smile, immediately became wary. She'd been tricked by Tsunade before and knew that expression meant trouble. Tsunade-ne, you seem mischievous. Konan took a few steps back, keeping her distance. Tsunade sighed dramatically, feigning hurt. Did Konan really distrust her that much? It stung a little, even though she had intended to tease her. Chapter 274, Is there anything wrong with taking my last name? Tsunade, Makoto, and Konan returned home, but Shin and Kushina weren't in the living room, which Tsunade and Makoto had expected. Did Shin go out with Kushina? Mei Terumi couldn't help but ask. No. Go listen at his door, and you'll know, Tsunade said to Mei Terumi. Mei Terumi did as she was told, and as she reached the door, she could faintly hear certain sounds. Pa*pa. Immediately, Mei Terumi's face turned bright red. She stammered indignantly, "It's still daytime." Although it was evening, the sun hadn't completely set yet. To be doing that kind of shameless thing at this hour. Mei Terumi, completely flustered, ran away. Conan, who had been curious, decided against going over. Seeing Mei Terumi's reaction, she cleverly guessed what was happening. "Makoto-ne, let's go prepare dinner," Conan said, her own cheeks slightly pink, pulling Makoto towards the kitchen. After Makoto finished cooking, Shin finally emerged from the room, supporting Kushina alongside him. As for why he needed to support Kushina, naturally, it was because she was completely drained and her legs were weak. She couldn't even stand steadily without his help. Seeing Kushina in this state, Tsunade and the others shot them strange looks, making even the normally thick-skinned Kushina feel embarrassed. While Kushina had a straightforward personality, some things were still embarrassing, and this was definitely one of them. "What are you looking at?" Kushina put on a fierce expression, glaring cutely at Makoto and the others. Well, acting all tough now, are we?" Tsunade approached Kushina with a mischievous smile, playfully poking her cheek with a slender finger. "Damn it! You're going too far." Kushina, seeing Tsunade taking advantage of her weakness, became furious and tried to bite Tsunade's finger. However, being too weak, her movements were slow, and she couldn't reach Tsunade. She could only glare helplessly. "Just wait until I recover. I'll make you pay," Kushina declared loudly. "After you recover? You have to recover first. Right now, I can bully you however I want." Tsunade chuckled, pinching Kushina's cheek. "So annoying." Kushina looked at Tsunade teasing her, getting angrier by the second. When had she ever suffered such humiliation? Well, maybe when she was little, Tsunade had bullied her, but that was then. Back then, she didn't have the strength to resist. Now that she was as strong as Tsunade, she naturally wouldn't tolerate being bullied again. "I just love seeing you angry." Tsunade thought this was a perfect opportunity to tease Kushina properly, to stop her from constantly opposing her. Kushina took a deep breath, calming herself. She knew getting angry was pointless, it would only make this cougar happier. "Shin, you saw that, right? This old woman, Tsunade, is bullying me right in front of you." Kushina decided appealing to Shin was her only option now. "Oh, old woman?" Tsunade's face turned dark. Kushina actually dared to say that? Instantly, the immense chakra hidden within Tsunade surged forth. Even though she didn't have to worry about lifespan issues anymore, being immortal and eternally youthful women still cared deeply about such things. Seeing Tsunade get angry, Kushina felt a secret thrill. "Serves you right for bullying me." Now it was her turn to strike back. "Aren't you? Aren't you an old woman? Oh, right, let me count how many years older you are than me. I wonder if 10 fingers are enough." Kushina glanced provocatively at Tsunade, a smile returning to her previously annoyed face. "Sit down and eat. If you don't eat soon, Mei will finish everything." Shin interrupted Kushina and Tsunade. Knowing them, they would argue endlessly otherwise. "Finish everything? I don't have that kind of appetite," Mei Terumi muttered, pouting. Her appetite wasn't that large. Makoto and Conan had prepared plenty of food, Mei felt even 10 of her couldn't finish it all. "No one asked you," Shin said, glaring at Mei Terumi. Mei Terumi shot Shin a resentful look, but perhaps because she was used to being bullied, she didn't make a fuss or demand retribution. "I'll let you off this time." Tsunade huffed lightly at Kushina. "You think I'm afraid of you?" Kushina remained defiant. Tsunade had pinched her cheek earlier. Kushina, who hated losing, decided she'd find a chance to pinch her back. "Hurry up and sit down." Shin poked Kushina's puffed-out cheek, then guided her to a chair. "Shin, feed me." Kushina opened her mouth, looking expectantly at Shin. "Can't you eat by yourself?" Shin asked, exasperated. "Actually, I can't." Kushina's hand trembled as she tried to hold her chopsticks, she couldn't even pick up food properly.
At this moment, Makoto looked at Kushina with sympathy. "You've had it rough, Kushina." Makoto patted Kushina's shoulder, looking at her pitifully. "Fine, I'll feed you."
Shin picked up some food with his chopsticks and brought it to Kushina's lips.
Kushina ate happily, then shot a provocative glance at Tsunade, who was sitting opposite her. Tsunade gritted her teeth. If it weren't for Kushina's provocative look, Tsunade wouldn't have thought much of it.
But now, she was 100% certain.
Kushina definitely wasn't so weak she couldn't even eat.
She was faking it, just to make Shin feed her.
What a schemer. Maybe I should try that sometime. Tsunade had never experienced Shin feeding her. Seeing Kushina's blissful expression, Tsunade felt a pang of jealousy.
The delicious food suddenly didn't taste as good.
It wasn't just Tsunade.
Makoto, Konan, and Mei Terumi also felt their appetites diminish slightly.
Kushina's move was a massive critical AoE hit affecting everyone.
It was like she'd unleashed a map-wide attack.
However, Kushina hadn't realized it yet. If she had, she'd probably be even happier, perhaps even flaunting it more enthusiastically.
Chapter 275, The Naive Fourth Raikage.
Don't get too smug. Can't you see Tsunade and Makoto want to beat you up?
Shin looked at Kushina, who was still basking in the attention of being fed by him, and couldn't help but feel exasperated.
Couldn't she sense the murderous intent radiating from the others? Even the gentle Makoto looked like she wanted to punch her. Yet Kushina was still acting oblivious. Do they?
Kushina paused, glanced at Tsunade, who was indeed gnashing her teeth, but completely missed the subtle cues from the others. She looked at Makoto, who wore her usual gentle smile.
How could Makoto possibly want to hurt her?
They were best friends. After Shin pointed it out, however, Kushina lost her smugness and quietly enjoyed Shin feeding her.
I'm full. Tsunade abruptly pushed her plate away.
Being subjected to this public display of affection had killed her appetite.
Me too.
Makoto, Konan, and Mei Terumi quickly followed suit, leaving only Shin and Kushina at the table.
Did they eat that little?
Kushina asked, confused, after taking a bite of chicken from Shin.
Shin gave her a look. Are you really asking why they didn't eat much? Are you seriously that clueless? Following the principle of not wasting food, Shin and Kushina finished everything. Perhaps due to her earlier exertion, Kushina ate quite a bit today.
Let's go back to the room, Shin said, putting his arm around Kushina and helping her up.
Wait, again? Kushina's face fell. She truly couldn't handle any more.
She couldn't let pride lead to further suffering.
What are you thinking? We're just going to rest.
Shin flicked Kushina's forehead, then scooped her up in a princess carry and headed towards the bedroom. Being held like that, Kushina's face broke into a sweet smile. It felt so warm and secure in his arms, she wished it could last forever. Shin's life was peaceful, but the shinobi world was anything but. One might expect peace after the Third Shinobi World War had just ended, but the Nine-Tails attack on Konoha had shattered the calm, plunging the world back into turmoil. Kumogakure, seeing an opportunity to profit from Konoha's weakness, declared war. Sunagakure and Iwagakure, however, remained on the sidelines. Unlike Kumo, they had suffered heavy losses in the previous war and lacked the strength to challenge Konoha, even in its weakened state. Not long ago the Fourth Raikage, had been critically injured by Shin and only survived thanks to considerable effort and resources. Kumo had also lost their ultimate weapon, the Eight Tails. Killer Bee survived, but only possessed a fragment of the Eight Tails' chakra. Logically, it should have sought peace with Konoha. But he was bold, or perhaps foolish. He completely suppressed the news of his injuries, few knew about it anyway, and continued the war against Konoha. He had his reasons. He needed resources from Konoha to strengthen Kumogakure. I had realized he could never defeat Shin Uzumaki himself, so he shifted his focus. He would build up Kumogakure's strength and use the entire village's power to seek revenge. It was the only plan he could think of. But it was a foolish plan. Trying to overwhelm Shin with numbers was naive, utterly unrealistic.
Did sheer numbers work against Madara Uchiha? Against Hashirama Senju? A single Tengai Shinsei pulling a meteor from space could annihilate an army. Could anyone dodge that?
Even without meteors, would release, deep forest emergence could wipe out countless opponents. Though technically an A-rank jutsu, in the hands of someone like Shin, its power was far beyond that.
Even Kage-level shinobi could be overwhelmed and killed if caught within it. But A didn't know this. He believed a numbers strategy could work against Shin.
And it was his only perceived option.
Developing Kumobakure required vast sums of money.
Even the Land of Lightning's daimyo, though supportive, might not provide the necessary funds. So, A turned his eyes to Konoha. They were wealthy, and with the fourth Hokage dead, they were vulnerable. Driven by this thinking, A continued the war against Konoha, despite his own weakened state. Meanwhile, news of the fifth Mizukage's assassination spread like wildfire throughout the shinobi world.
Kirigakure became a laughingstock. Though Kiri tried desperately to suppress the news, such a major event couldn't be contained. Even being an island nation couldn't stop the information from leaking. People sneered.
Other villages were on their fourth Kage. Kirigakure's fifth Mizukage had been killed, assassinated within his own village.
It was utterly humiliating. Kirigakure was branded as weak.
They'd already been ridiculed when Shin killed the third Mizukage. Back then, Shin wasn't famous, so it looked like the Mizukage had been killed by some unknown brat. Then the mysterious fourth Mizukage died under unknown circumstances, inviting more mockery.
Now, the fifth Mizukage was dead too. Rumors of a curse spread. Anyone who became Mizukage was doomed to a short life. No one dared to take the position. Kirigakure couldn't easily choose a successor either. A Kage needed strength to command respect and suppress dissent. Currently, Kirigakure didn't even have a Kage-level shinobi left. Promoting an elite jonin or quasi-Kage would only lead to more internal conflict. So, Kirigakure entered an era without a Mizukage.
If they couldn't find a suitable leader soon, they risked being demoted from the 5 great villages.
Chapter 276, System Mission, Save Hinata Hyuga.
3 years passed in a blink of an eye. Although Shin mostly stayed in the land of whirlpools, hidden on the overseas island far from the mainland shinobi world, he kept himself well informed about events across the continent. Thanks to his third Reikage puppet acting as his eyes and ears, along with intel from White Zetsu, Shin had a decent grasp of major and minor happenings. Today, however, Shin had to leave the land of whirlpools.
The system had finally issued a mission after years of silence.
And this mission required him to head to Konoha. It's worth mentioning that over these 3 years, the system had granted Shin 3 more replication cards, all of them common. In total, Shin now held 10 common replication cards, 4 advanced replication cards, and 1 divine replication card.
Shin decided to synthesize them.
10 common cards fused into 2 advanced cards. Then, using 5 advanced cards, his existing 4 plus 1 newly fused one, he created another divine card. So now, Shin possessed 2 divine replication cards and 1 remaining advanced replication card. He'd fused them because common cards were practically useless to him now. Advanced cards still had some utility, but the divine replication cards, capable of copying anything, were the most valuable. However, Shin currently had no immediate target for his powerful cards, so he held on to them. His plan was to eventually find the Sage of 6 Paths, Hagoromo Otsutsuki, and copy his power. Or, wait until Kagaya Otsutsuki was revived and copy all her abilities. Copying their powers would definitely push his strength beyond the standard 6 paths level, though to what extent, he couldn't be sure without trying. With his incredible speed, Shin arrived in Konoha shortly after leaving the land of whirlpools. He quickly gathered intel.
Kumogakure's envoys hadn't arrived yet. Indeed, the system's mission involved Kumo. The objective, intercept Kumogakure's envoys and snatch Hinata Hyuga from them, a classic case of stealing from thieves. The conflict between Konoha and Kumogakure had recently subsided.
The 4th Reikage, had initially planned to exploit Konoha's weakened state after the Ninetales incident.
However, even weakened, Konoha wasn't an easy target. Kumobakure failed to gain any significant advantage and couldn't afford a prolonged war. Thus, they sent envoys to negotiate peace. Of course, this was just a pretext. Their real goal was the Hyuga clan's Byakugan. The Kumo envoy delegation planned to use the peace talks as a cover to kidnap a member of the Hyuga main family. In the original timeline, their target was Hinata Hyuga. However, they failed, being stopped by Hayashi Hyuga, who killed the lead Kumo envoy in the process. Despite Kumo being clearly in the wrong, they shamelessly demanded Konoha hand over the murderer. Hiruzen Sarutobi, wanting to avoid further conflict, made the humiliating decision to sacrifice Hisashi Hyuga, Hayashi's twin brother, in his place. Hisashi died for his brother, fueling his son Niji Hyuga's deep-seated hatred for the main family. But now, Shin planned to interfere. He wondered how his actions would alter the course of events this time. "Kakashi, you're finally back. I challenge you to a duel." A loud, energetic shout drew Shin's attention. He saw a figure resembling a Kappa bull haircut, green jumpsuit. Shin couldn't appreciate the fashion sense, but he recognized the man instantly. Besides Might Guy, who else in Konoha dressed like that? Rock Lee was still a child. It had to be Might Guy, Kakashi's other best friend. Kakashi turned, looking weary. Running into Guy right after returning from a mission, was his luck really this bad? He gave Guy a cold glance and walked away without a word. Kakashi was still grappling with the trauma of Obito and Rin's deaths. His personality was far from cheerful. Shin observed Might Guy. He was somewhat interested in Guy's 8 inner gates technique. Opening all 8 gates allowed Guy to use Night Guy, a technique powerful enough to nearly kill 6 Paths Madara, almost ending the entire series prematurely. "I wonder if my body could handle opening all 8 gates without injury," Shin mused softly. He didn't know the specifics of the 8 inner gates, and couldn't be certain. "Hey, who are you? I don't think I've seen you around Konoha before?" Might Guy approached Shin, looking at him curiously. "Oh? Do you know everyone in Konoha?" Shin asked, looking back at Guy. Guy shook his head. Konoha was large, he couldn't possibly know everyone. But Shin's red hair was conspicuous. Redheads were rare in Konoha. If Shin were a local, Guy felt he should have heard of him. "Actually, I'm not from Konoha." Shin patted Guy's shoulder, then vanished. Guy blinked, startled. "Not from our village? A ninja from another village?" The man had vanished instantly, clearly not an ordinary person. It had to be a ninja. "Wait. I need to report this to the Hokage." Guy's expression turned serious. Though often goofy, he was a reliable shinobi when it mattered. Sometimes, the goofiest people were the most dependable in a crisis. Shin was unaware that Guy was reporting him to Hiruzen. Even if he knew, he wouldn't care. He hadn't bothered hiding his arrival, strolling openly into the village. With his current strength, why would he need to sneak around? He doubted Hiruzen would dare confront him. And if he did, Shin wouldn't mind giving him a slap to wake him up. "I wonder if Kushina and the others will be angry that I left without them this time." Shin thought of Kushina and sighed. Well, if she was angry, he'd just have to comfort her properly when he got back. He strolled through Konoha's streets. It had been years since his last visit. The village seemed even more prosperous than before. Konoha, situated in the most fertile region, had advantages other villages lacked. The Ninetales incident 3 years ago had caused significant damage, but Konoha had recovered remarkably quickly and seemed to be thriving even more. Shin had to admit he was impressed. Of course, the Land of Fire daimyo's financial support must have played a significant role. Without it, Konoha's recovery wouldn't have been so swift. Being established in a wealthy nation was certainly beneficial, unlike Sunagakure, which was practically living hand-to-mouth. Chapter 277, Hinata Hyuga. Shin stayed in Konoha for 2 days before Kumobakure's envoy delegation arrived. The entire village greeted them with elaborate ceremony, a spectacle Shin found utterly nauseating. Treating enemies like honored guests? The Hokage himself coming out to welcome them? How pathetic. Shin shook his head, looking down on Hiruzen Sarutobi as he personally greeted the Kumo envoys on the street. The Kumo delegation, initially cautious, immediately grew arrogant upon seeing Hiruzen's deference and the importance Konoha placed on their visit. The lead envoy adopted a haughty expression. Clearly, Konoha desired peace more than they did. Kumo held the upper hand. Any initial nervousness they felt about being in Konoha vanished, replaced by smug confidence. How boring. Shin turned to leave. Oof. A small, childlike yelp reached Shin's ears. He looked down to see a little girl with short, lavender hair sprawled on the ground, rubbing her head. She had bumped into Shin as he turned and fallen. Hinata Hyuga? Shin asked, noticing the girl's distinctive white eyes. Hinata looked up, her misty eyes filled with confusion. Does he know me? Shin hadn't expected to run into Hinata here. He reached down and helped her up. Watch where you're going next time. I almost thought you were trying to scam me. Shin crouched down and gently patted Hinata's head. I'm sorry. Hinata looked up at Shin fearfully, tears welling in her eyes, threatening to spill over. Shin sighed internally. Do I really look that scary? He might not be universally beloved, but he didn't think he was terrifying. Do I look frightening? Shin couldn't help but ask. Hinata lowered her head timidly, her small hands fidgeting nervously. Tears streamed down her face. Shin felt a headache coming on, especially as he noticed the strange looks from passers-by. Now they probably thought he was some bully picking on a little girl. He scooped Hinata up and vanished. Shin swore he'd never felt so awkward. He reappeared with Hinata on the rooftop of a tall building. Setting her down, he watched her quiet sobs, feeling increasingly exasperated. Stop crying. I didn't even bully you. Hinata immediately stopped crying, looking at Shin with wide, fearful eyes, glancing around nervously. Shin knew Hinata was naturally timid, but this was beyond what he'd expected. She seemed deeply insecure and lacking in confidence. It was partly her nature, but also likely due to Hayashi Hyuga's harsh parenting. Hayashi was too strict. Though a clan heiress, Hinata clearly lacked self-assurance. Shin sat down on the roof, saying nothing. Hinata stood there hesitantly, not daring to speak. Aren't you going to ask who I am? Shin finally asked, turning to look at her. I'm sorry. Hinata bowed again, apologizing, which only frustrated Shin further. You don't need to apologize. I wasn't blaming you. Seeing her fragile state, Shin couldn't help but feel a pang of sympathy. Come on, I'll take you home. Shin took Hinata's hand and leaped off the rooftop. Hinata, terrified, clung to him tightly, squeezing her eyes shut, certain she was about to die. It's okay, Shin patted her head gently, prompting her to open her eyes. Don't be so timid. You can't become a proper shinobi like this, Shin said. He knew she possessed inner strength, but her current demeanor wasn't suited for the shinobi life. And my father says the same thing. Hinata looked down. Her father often told her she wasn't cut out to be a shinobi. And do you believe that? Shin asked, ruffling her hair. It felt surprisingly soft. Hinata seemed to relax under his touch, enjoying the gentle gesture. She had never been treated so kindly. Her father was always strict, reprimanding her for every mistake. He rarely showed affection, hiding his love behind a stern facade. I feel like I can't do anything right. Father says I have no talent, Hinata confessed, her voice filled with self-doubt. Nonsense. You're only 3 years old, you haven't even started training yet. How would he know? Shin believed Hinata had potential. Hinata's early weakness stemmed from her lack of confidence, not a lack of talent. She was the Byakugan princess, after all. Let's go. I'll take you home. And I need to talk to your father about something. Big brother, do you know my father? Hinata asked, looking up at him. Of course. We were classmates. We weren't exactly close, but we weren't enemies either. Hinata looked at Shin with surprise. He didn't seem like he was the same age as her father. Chapter 278, Hayashi Hyuga is quite tough. Seeing his clansmen trying to send Shin away, little Hinata became anxious. Big brother is father's classmate, she protested, her face flushed. Young miss, don't tell me you were deceived? One of the Hyuga clansmen interrupted, his gaze turning hostile towards Shin. Claiming to be the clan head's classmate? What a joke! They refused to believe it. How dare he try to scam them? Get lost. Shin had no patience for these clowns. The two Hyuga blocking his path were sent flying, smashing two large holes into the Hyuga compound wall. Be big brother. Hinata looked nervously at Shin. Let's go inside. Shin smiled down at Hinata, then took her hand and entered the Hyuga compound. It wasn't his first time here, though the clan head back then had been Hayashi's father. The commotion attracted more Hyuga clansmen. Shin, uninterested in arguing, simply used genjutsu to control them and continued towards the core of the compound, where Hayashi Hyuga resided. Hinata grew even more nervous as they approached her father's house. Shin sighed inwardly. Hayashi really was a terrible father. Shin Uzumaki? Hayashi emerged from his house, initially surprised to see Shin, then furious when he noticed Hinata beside him. Shin Uzumaki! Release my daughter! Ha? Is there something wrong with your head? Shin gave Hayashi a look like he was dealing with an idiot. Hayashi's face turned livid. He desperately tried to figure out how to rescue his daughter. Gentle fist art, 8 trigrams 64 palms. A massive bagua pattern enveloped Shin as Hayashi launched his attack. Shin simply threw a punch. Boom! Hayashi was sent flying backward, crashing through the house wall and rolling several times before stopping. Idiot! That should wake you up. Shin felt he'd held back considerably. Hayashi was likely just injured, a serious blow would have turned him to dust. Hinata's jaw dropped. Was that really her father who just got sent flying? Cough, cough. Hayashi struggled to his feet, spitting out blood. He felt slightly better after that. Hayashi Hyuga, are you seriously thinking I kidnapped your daughter? Hayashi finally came to his senses, realizing his impulsiveness. He had subconsciously assumed Shin was hostile. Though not officially a missing nin, Shin was treated as such by Konoha, a perception Hayashi shared. And your Hyuga clan has some nerve. I bring your daughter back, and I don't even get a thank you, Shin said coolly. Hayashi's expression shifted, then he bowed deeply. My apologies. We were rude. Having been easily overpowered, he had no choice but to submit. He desperately wanted to ask how Hinata had ended up with Shin, but he held his tongue. After massaging his bruised torso, he invited Shin inside. Father, are you all right? Hinata asked softly. Hayashi stiffened. He was barely holding himself together, putting on a brave face for his daughter. Hayashi couldn't lose face, especially not in front of her. Pride wouldn't allow it, even if the pain was excruciating. Hinata, leave us. We have matters to discuss, Hayashi said sternly. Oh. Hinata left obediently. As soon as Hinata left, Hayashi coughed up more blood, barely managing to swallow it back down. You're a tough one. I'll give you that. Shin gave Hayashi a thumbs up. The man was tougher than he looked and stubborn. Hayashi's face flushed red from the effort of suppressing the pain. He was relieved Hinata hadn't seen him like this, it would have been utterly humiliating. Shin Uzumaki, your visit to the Hyuga clan, it can't just be to return my daughter, can it? Hayashi asked, regaining his composure. Go rinse your mouth first. I don't want to talk to someone with a mouthful of blood, Shin said disdainfully, waving him away. Hayashi's jaw twitched. He suppressed his anger. He couldn't win against Shin, his earlier attack had been impulsive. From a different perspective, perhaps Hayashi truly cared about Hinata. After all, Hanabi hadn't been born yet, Hinata was his only daughter, the future head of the Hyuga clan. After rinsing his mouth, Hayashi asked again, I doubt you came just to return my daughter. State your purpose. You're right about that. Shin smiled. But what I have to say, you might not like it. Hayashi's gaze hardened. He wished Shin wouldn't say anything. But he couldn't stop him. It's about Hinata. I believe she has great potential. I plan to take her with me. What do you think? Hayashi's face changed instantly. Let Shin take his daughter? No. Absolutely not. I refuse. Hayashi rejected the offer without hesitation. Don't be so quick to refuse. I believe Hinata will reach her full potential under my guidance. Honestly, if she stays here under your tutelage, you might ruin her talent. Shin wasn't lying. In the original story, Hinata was sweet but weak. Hayashi's face darkened. Shin's words were a direct insult to his teaching abilities. Chapter 279, I promise I won't kill you. Shin Uzumaki, I acknowledge your strength. Perhaps no one in the entire shinobi world is stronger than you. But you are not suitable to teach Hinata. Hayashi Hyuga said solemnly. Hinata needed to learn the Hyuga clan's traditional gentle fist style, something Shin Uzumaki couldn't teach her. Furthermore, Hinata was destined to become the head of the Hyuga clan. How could her training be entrusted to an outsider like Shin Uzumaki? It's rare for you to praise me. But tell me, why am I supposedly unsuitable to teach Hinata? Shin smiled and asked Hayashi. The gentle fist. You may be powerful, but you cannot teach. I know it. Your Hyuga clan's gentle fist is quite simple. Shin interrupted Hayashi. He naturally knew how to use the gentle fist. He had obtained the secret techniques of various Konoha clans from Danzo, including the gentle fist. He had specifically studied it. In fact, his mastery of the gentle fist surpassed Hayashi's. Honestly, Hayashi Hyuga was rather weak. His strength was barely at the level of an elite jonin, maybe quasi-kage at best. He hadn't even reached kage level. Even the Kagaya clan head had kage level strength. How could the Hyuga clan, with such limited power, call themselves a prominent Konoha clan? It was laughable. Especially after the Uchiha clan massacre, they even claimed to be Konoha's #1 clan. The gap was enormous. The Uchiha clan, before their downfall, had numerous powerful members. If Itachi and Shisui hadn't become traitors, the Uchiha might have actually overthrown Konoha. Fugaku Uchiha and Shisui Uchiha were at least quasi-kage level. Yet the Hyuga clan, supposedly their equals, couldn't even produce one kage level shinobi. Shin didn't understand what the Hyuga clan had to be proud of. The Uchiha at least had the strength to back up their arrogance. The Hyuga truly didn't. You say you know the Hyuga clan's gentle fist? Hayashi frowned. Claiming to know their clan's secret technique and calling it simple? This was intolerable. Indeed. Did you think I'd lie to you? Hayashi remained silent. With Shin Uzumaki's strength, there was no need for him to lie. But Hayashi still didn't believe Shin knew the gentle fist. The gentle fist required the Byakugan to be used effectively. Without the Byakugan, even if one knew the forms, it would be like having the shell without the spirit. Want to try it? I promise I won't kill you. Seeing Hayashi's disbelief, Shin offered the challenge. Hayashi's expression remained stern, but inwardly, he was reeling. Try it? And he promises not to kill me? Was this guy serious? Hayashi clenched his fists, growing angrier the more he thought about it. Why didn't I beat him up back when he was weaker? He remembered Shin from the academy. He hadn't seemed particularly strong then. How had he become so powerful? Hayashi didn't know Shin had been hiding his strength even back then. If Hayashi had attacked him, he still would have lost. I may not have the Byakugan, but I possess its evolved form. Is it so strange that I know the gentle fist? The Byakugan evolved into the Tensigan.
Shin's Nine-Tomo Rinna Tensigen was even more advanced, possessing all the Tensigen's abilities. The Byakugan can evolve? Hayashi's breath hitched. He'd heard Shin mention the Byakugan's evolution before. Could it really evolve? Indeed. If the Sharingan can evolve, why can't the Byakugan? Shin actually thought the Byakugan wasn't as weak as commonly perceived. Kagaya Otsutsuki's Byakugan, for instance, was incredibly powerful. Can you tell me about the Byakugan's evolution? Hayashi didn't know how Shin knew, but he believed him. With Shin's strength, he wouldn't waste time teasing him. Evolving the Byakugan is extremely difficult. You wouldn't be able to do it. So I won't trouble you with the details. Shin didn't elaborate. Hayashi certainly couldn't achieve it. The Otsutsuki evolved the Tensigen by transplanting a pure Hyuga Byakugan. What the Hyuga needed to evolve their Byakugan, Shin wasn't sure. Perhaps they needed cells from the Otsutsuki clan on the moon, similar to how Madara Uchiha used Hashirama Senju's cells to awaken the Rinnegan. But Shin had wiped out the Otsutsuki clan on the moon, there was nothing left. Where would they get the cells? Hayashi's face darkened. Shin had piqued his interest, only to shut him down. It was frustrating. If you entrust Hinata to my training, perhaps I can help her, Byakugan, evolve. Shin couldn't guarantee it, hence the perhaps. Makoto's eternal Mangekyo Sharingan hadn't evolved into the Rinnegan even with his help. Evolving Hinata's Byakugan into the Tensigen would likely be even more difficult. Hayashi remained silent, still undecided. I'm taking Hinata with me regardless. I'm just informing you. Your decision is irrelevant. Hinata was related to his mission, and Shin genuinely liked her. Taking her was non-negotiable. Hayashi glared at Shin angrily. This was no different from robbery. If it weren't Shin Uzumaki, someone far stronger than him, Hayashi would have fought back. I'll be staying at the Hyuga compound for a while. Make the necessary arrangements. Shin said with a smile. Hayashi's face turned black. He wanted to punch Shin. This was outrageous. But considering Shin's strength, the frustrated Hayashi chose to endure it. He couldn't afford to fight back. That first punch had nearly killed him. He didn't want another one. The next one would surely finish him off. Hayashi, his face dark, instructed his clansmen to arrange a place for Shin. At the same time, he worried about how to explain this to the third Hokage. Shin Uzumaki suddenly living in the Hyuga compound, he had to explain it to Hiruzen. Though Shin wasn't officially a missing nin, he was treated like one. The only reason he wasn't officially designated as such was because Konoha didn't want to anger him. Now, with Shin staying in the Hyuga clan grounds, if Hayashi didn't explain things clearly to Hiruzen, it could arouse suspicion. Hayashi didn't want to be ostracized by the third Hokage. Look at the Uchiha clan, they were being pushed to the village outskirts. Chapter 280, Task Change? System, why did the mission change? Shin was currently in the quarters Hayashi Hyuga had arranged for him. Shortly after arriving, he'd received a notification from the system, his mission had been altered. The original objective was to intercept Kumogakure's envoys and snatch Hinata Hyuga from them. Now, the mission was simply to take Hinata, with no mention of Kumo. The reward remained the same, X1 Advanced Replication Card. While the change didn't significantly impact Shin, he was curious about the reason. This was the first time something like this had happened, it would be strange not to be curious. Master, you are currently within the Hyuga clan compound. Based on system calculations, the probability of Kumogakure successfully abducting Hinata Hyuga is 0. The steal from thieves objective is no longer viable. Therefore, the mission parameters have been updated. Ah, I see. Shin nodded, understanding now. If Kumo envoys showed up, Shin would likely obliterate them instantly, making the abduction impossible. Thus, the system adjusted the mission. This told Shin that system missions could indeed change based on real-world circumstances. 2 days passed. Shin remained in the Hyuga compound, mostly amusing himself by teasing Hinata. He'd actually grown quite fond of her. That evening, Shin was sitting by the courtyard pond with Hinata, feeding the fish. The pond was stocked with quite a few fish. Hinata mentioned Hayashi raised them. Shin hadn't pegged Hayashi as the type to have such hobbies. An uninvited guest has arrived. Shin looked up, his gaze piercing the shadows on the rooftop. The leader of the Kumo envoy delegation. He decided to make his move tonight, targeting Hinata as planned. Kidnapping a young, defenseless child seemed the easiest route. But Hinata wasn't alone. Shin, a massive obstacle, was right beside her. The Kumo leader showing up now was practically suicide. There's someone else here? The Kumo leader, hidden by the moonlight, spotted Shin next to Hinata and frowned heavily. This complicated things. He needed to eliminate the bystanders silently, without alerting the Hyuga clan. The Kumo leader was confident, but not arrogant enough to think he could take on the entire Hyuga clan. Your bad luck. The Kumo leader's eyes turned ruthless. He stealthily approached Shin, intending to dispatch the interference quickly before snatching the Hyuga clan head's daughter. Aren't you tired of sneaking around? Shin watched the Kumo shinobi's clumsy approach with amusement. His stealth skills were amateurish. Even White Zetsu couldn't hide from Shin. This Kumo shinobi stood no chance. He spotted me? The Kumo leader froze. He prided himself on his infiltration skills. How had he been discovered? Since he was exposed, hiding was pointless. The Kumo leader stepped out of the shadows. Shin looked him over. The idiot was practically wearing a neon sign advertising his affiliation with Kumogakure. No mask, forehead protector proudly displayed. Was he afraid people wouldn't know he was from Kumogakure? Then again, Shin mused, if he failed, hiding his identity wouldn't matter anyway. Big brother. Hinata nervously hid behind Shin, peeking fearfully at the menacing Kumo leader. Seeing his fierce expression only frightened her more. Don't worry, Hinata. Just a minor Kumo shinobi. Even if the fourth Reikage himself showed up, he'd be bowing before me. Shin gently patted Hinata's head, reassuring her. Arrogant fool. Your biggest mistake was not calling for help immediately. The Kumo leader drew his sword, emanating icy killing intent. Kumo shinobi deeply respected their Reikage. Shin's dismissive remark about the fourth Reikage bowing before him ignited the leader's fury. His hatred for Shin instantly peaked. Heh, your biggest mistake was not running away the moment you saw me. Shin chuckled coldly. Even if the man had fled, Shin wouldn't have let him escape. Gentle fist dart, 8 trigrams 64 palms. In an instant, Shin struck the Kumo leader's chakra points. It wasn't a chakra sealing attack, but a fatal blow delivered directly. Since Shin had decided to act, he wouldn't leave the man alive. He turned Hinata away, shielding her from the gruesome sight. Despite controlling his strength, the Kumo leader's body was twisted grotesquely, unrecognizable even to those who knew him best. At least Shin hadn't turned him into a bloody mist. That was something. Let's go, Hinata. We'll leave, then notify Hayashi to clean this up. Shin took Hinata's hand and used the body flicker technique to leave, reappearing before Hayashi, who was busy with clan affairs. Being the head of a major clan meant Hayashi had many responsibilities. What brings you here? Hayashi felt a headache coming on just seeing Shin. He desperately wished Shin would just leave already. Just came to ask you to handle a small matter. You know the leader of the Kumo delegation, right? Hayashi, though puzzled, nodded. He'd been keeping an eye on the Kumo leader. Though seemingly unrelated to the Hyuga, it was a major village event. Hayashi naturally paid attention. But he had a bad feeling about why Shin was bringing this up. Now, don't overreact. Shin warned Hayashi, anticipating his reaction. Hearing Shin say that only increased Hayashi's sense of foreboding. A moment ago, I killed him. In your courtyard. The body's still there. You should probably take care of it before it starts to stink. What? Hayashi, who had been relatively calm, shot to his feet, eyes wide, staring at Shin in disbelief. He thought he must have misheard. Did Shin really kill the Kumo delegation? Why are you panicking? You weren't the one who killed him, Shin said, looking at Hayashi with exasperation. He'd expected Hayashi to be shocked, but not this shocked. With this little nerve, he really wasn't suited to be the Hyuga clan head. Hayashi's face turned dark. While he hadn't killed the man, the death occurred within the Hyuga compound. The Hyuga clan would undoubtedly be held responsible. He knew it. Shin staying with the Hyuga clan would only bring trouble. Now it had happened. This was a huge mess for the Hyuga. Hayashi worriedly considered how to handle the situation, most importantly, how to extricate the Hyuga clan from responsibility. That wraps up this part of What If Copy System in Naruto. Thanks so much for listening. As always, new parts drop every 4 days, so be sure to stay tuned. Also check out my Patreon channel for early releases of all the series, where you can find all the series released one day ahead of YouTube. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like, subscribe, share it with your friends, and please consider supporting the original author as well. See you in the next one.